Happy Sunday to each and every one of you. It's a pleasure to be here again. My name is Reverend Joanne Burns, and today we are exploring cultivating calm and stillness. And I'm sure you're all experts already, right? That's my observation from watching you during meditation. So, if that's not true, we'll talk later. All right, well, here we are in the tail end of The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. I have been loving this book, and I know that I will be referring it to others as I continue on the journey, and I hope that you will be doing so as well, as we each strive to live a wholehearted life. As we look this week about our lifestyles, is this something that you may be experiencing? In this illustration, it says, I am finding it difficult to concentrate, but I'm not sure why. However, if you notice the sound blaring from the TV and the radio and the laptop and the headphones and the MP3 player and the... Have you ever had a day like that? No. Oh, some are shaking their heads. No, this is a positive thought. Well, good. And if you are experiencing this, or you know someone who is, then I'm sure you can relate. This is what we in America call anxiety. There you have it. Anxiety in the United States is pretty much a lifestyle choice. Anxiety can be a normal reaction to stress. If you see a bear or a tiger in the room. However, I've never seen a bear or a tiger in my office or my home, so the anxiety that we sometimes give to ourselves could be possibly self-induced. I think I'm a little bit guilty of that from time to time. However, some people do actually struggle with anxiety, and it is a very real situation. And in America, our statistics on anxiety are pretty high. This chart from 2005 indicates that 28% of Americans are dealing with some level of anxiety, and this is 11 years old. I couldn't find anything more current. They're probably not able to keep it up to date. So unfortunately, onset of anxiety starts at 13 to 18 years old, from what they're telling us. So, unfortunately, I have had the opportunity working in youth and family ministries throughout the country that I've seen kindergartner students, 5 and 6 years old, dealing with this high level of stress and anxiety. So, as we move into our journey and work with how do we find the tools to create a life of calm and stillness so that our anxiety doesn't overwhelm us, knowing that there's no tiger or bear in the room, how do we learn those tools? This wonderful chart here is a chart of contemplative practices. In Unity, we use many contemplative practices to teach ourselves a way to manage stress. Norman Vincent Peale had a quote that said that a cyclone still receives its power at the calm of its center. We all have a calm at our center. Unity principle number 2 teaches us that that divine spark at the core of our being, our Christ light, is our divine center, our calm. And so it's there. It's a matter of lifting away all of the layers of dirt and dust and cobwebs that have accumulated for us to use it. So as we move through some of these practices, we won't touch on them today. That could be a 5-week class of its own. I just want to bring to your awareness that there is obviously the breathing exercise that I led you through earlier today, or the meditation practices that we teach, walking meditations such as the labyrinth, using a chant or a mantra, spending time in nature, just sitting and watching the waves flow, or the trees sway, or listening to the birds. Spending time in nature, letting go, letting God be God in your life. All of these practices help us return our awareness to that calm that is already present within us in our Christ center. Another tool that I like that actually combines a number of these other tools is called the practice of Ho'oponopono. Yes, that's a doozy of a word if you're not practicing. It's Ho'oponopono. And actually, it's a Hawaiian or Polynesian healing practices that is rooted in the idea that the things we recognize in life, we have the ability to contribute to their existence. And so Ho means to, and Ponopono means to put it right, to cleanse, to make amends, to adjust, to correct. So Ho'oponopono is a mental cleansing. And oftentimes in that culture, they would come together in community or family to make things right. I'm sure many of you have had that opportunity to come together as a family or a spiritual community to make things right, to put things in order so that you can move forward in peace. One of the stories about how this came to the awareness comes from a Hawaiian therapist who was working in a Hawaiian ward for the criminally insane. Now this place was dangerous. They had great turnover in their psychologists and their therapy staff and their caretakers, and people were afraid to be there. It just wasn't safe. And so this psychologist by the name of Hugh Len was hired, and he went into this criminally insane ward, and he healed the patients, and he never saw a single one to their face. Spent absolutely no time in their presence. And yet, in 4 years, he healed a number of people, and the staff liked coming to work. The people on high levels of medication had their medications dropped. They had healed and released so many patients that they had to close down. There was no longer a need for this criminally insane therapy ward anymore in the state of Hawaii. And so the story of how he did that is pretty inspiring, I think, which is why I choose to share it today. Dr. Len never saw any of these patients. He agreed to have an office on property, and he would review their file. And so as these people are in community together, but not necessarily on a one-on-one basis, he would review their file and heal himself in relation to them. And what that means is he healed his judgment. He healed his contributing factor to their situation. And so in working on this, of course, there were others who inquired. They needed to know the step-by-steps. It was like Charles Fillmore inquiring with Myrtle, how did you heal yourself? I need to know. What did you do? What did you say? How did it work? I'm going to write a book. Okay? So other people have taken that level of inquiry for this Ho'oponopono practice. And Joe Vitale of the movie The Secret is one of those individuals. And so in his interview with Dr. Len, he asked him straight out, what were you doing that caused these people to change? And he said, I was simply healing the part of me that created them. However, Joe did not understand this at all. And when I first read this, I'm like, what? How could that possibly be? And so Dr. Len went on to explain that to have total responsibility for your life means that everything in your life is there for a reason and a purpose. And it is not just simply there, it is part of us that have drawn that situation to us. Did you notice how lovely these flowers match my deck? It's just serendipitous, and this little yellow one has been reaching out for me to touch it ever since I came up here. So it's an energy exchange. It's a give and a take of life and love and peace and joy. That's the root of it all. And so Dr. Len knew this, and he put it to work in healing these individuals and this psych ward. So what he actually did was sit and look at those files and say these words: I'm sorry, I love you. He condensed it down because, when you've got all those patients to heal, it got a little monotonous. So he only used, I'm sorry and I love you. But the full Ho'oponopono prayer tradition is to use these 4 phrases. So I'm sure you're still taking in that you have a little bit of responsibility for everything that you see. It's bad enough to know that you have personal responsibility for you, your thoughts, your words, your actions. But when you add in all the rest, it can be a little overwhelming, right? I'm sure I'm not alone in this awareness, right? Okay, so even though that this concept might be hard to grasp, and we know that pointing the finger and blaming is so much easier, we know that that's really not the appropriate way to heal ourselves and the planet. So in talking with Dr. Len, Joe Vitale came to the realization that for Dr. Len to heal these individuals, it really came down to Dr. Len loving himself and loving each and every individual in that ward exactly as he loved himself. This is nothing new. We've heard this countless times before. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love God. Right? We've heard this. And when you think about the history of unity, did not Myrtle do this process to her own physical body? Many of you know that the co-founder of Unity, Myrtle Fillmore, had tuberculosis and healed herself by apologizing to her cells, by apologizing that she called herself sickly and diseased, that she believed those things. Are we not using this in other ways in our lives to call forth healing, understanding, and acceptance? So, if we're already using this occasionally, we could actually use it intentionally, right? I found myself this past few weeks using it all the time. Spirit gives you a topic, and it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to be more aware of my judgments of people, because if my judgments of others are contributing to their experience and my experience of them, I'm going to give it a whirl to see how my thoughts contribute to that experience. Yesterday at Unity of Mesa, we had our church annual yard sale, and we're on a very busy street if you've ever been to the Mesa, and we have occasionally some unique individuals visit our church property of a mentally ill situation. And I had a woman cleaning the kitchen after lunch in one of the buildings by herself, and I saw this gentleman. I was notified of his presence because he was inspecting all of the cars in the parking lot, and so of course staff and volunteers let me know, and my husband and I went over there. We were monitoring his situation and got him a bottle of water and went to talk to him. And he went into the building that was wide open and started to talk to the volunteer I had in the kitchen. Well, of course, I'm getting concerned, And so I'm thinking, here we go. Let's just send the love forward and make sure all is well when I actually get the opportunity to embrace this man with my presence. And so I asked if I could help him, and he said, I'm talking to this lady. And I said, I see that, and I'll wait till you're through, and then I'll engage with you as well. And he said, oh, I'm just a crazy person with a drug problem. And I just thought to myself, how sad that you've labeled yourself as such. I see you as a child of God. And so all I needed to do was think those thoughts. And he said, I don't mean any trouble. I'm just looking for another person. And I'm like, okay, great, And he went on his merry way. And it was a no problem, no incident, no situation. But I did think to myself, how sad that he sees himself in that way. And I was choosing consciously not to see him in that way. Was there a little bit of mental illness? Probably. Was he looking like he lived on the street? Yes. Do I know the circumstances of this individual? No. Is it my place to make a judgment? No. Is it my place to keep the community safe? Absolutely. And so in taking all of that in and discerning what to do and how to handle it, love is always the best answer. Not the easiest, but absolutely the best. And so I chose not to hold him in a vision and to hold him in his Christ light. And I think that's what this Ho'oponopono process does. When you have the ability to say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, whether you've had any interaction or dealings with it as well, you're still sending love and forgiveness out into the universe to shift the vibration of the planet. And so if this Dr. Len can heal an entire psych ward in 4 years' time, twice as long as Myrtle, but she was only working on herself, I think it's worth trying. Charles Fillmore would say, prove it to yourself. And so that's what I intend to do. I invite you to do that as well. All of this is rooted in the unity principle. Number 2, that Christ light within is our true essence. And so I invite you to remember your own Christ nature and the Christ nature of each and every individual here, as well as out in the community. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? I think so. But you have to prove it to yourself. It's not for me to say what is yours to do. But I will challenge you. If Myrtle had not practiced this on herself, we would not be sitting here today. We would not have the unity movement. We would not be sharing community and love. And so I believe that there is hope for cultivating this wholehearted life and using this as a tool to practice the process. Otherwise, life is just more ups and downs and lefts and rights and ups and downs and you know the roller coaster. You've all been on it with me, haven't you? So you can choose calm, stillness, or a few more loop-de-loops. Which one do you want? I'm going for the calm and stillness right now in my life. However, occasionally this can be quite fun. But we get to choose when we want to be in the fast and furious challenges of our lives, and then when we choose to create an embodiment of calm and peace, knowing that it is our thinking that makes it so. So as you choose what you want to consciously create for yourself, for your family, for your spiritual community, for the town of Payson even, for the state of Arizona, that's how powerful you all are and can be by aligning your thoughts with your Christ consciousness. If we embody a practice to forgive others and to forgive ourselves, there will no doubt be a shift in the vibration of the energy of the planet. There is a prayer here that I also found called, well, I don't know what it's called, but it's by Morna Lama Miku Simona. Oops, that's our future. So I would like to invite you all to affirm this prayer with me. Can you see it well enough? Yes. Okay. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Son, and one, if I, my family, relatives, and ancestors have offended you, your family, relatives, and ancestors in thoughts, words, deeds, and actions, from the beginning of our creation to the present, we ask your forgiveness. Let us cleanse, purify, release, cut out all negative memories, blocks, energies, and vibrations, and transmute these unwanted energies to pure light. And so it is, and so we allow for it to be. So that was found in the midst of the cultural history when I was searching for more information on the whole prayer. So I invite you to just breathe those words in and allow it to cleanse and purify your own thoughts, your own judgment, to transmute and purify any unwanted negative thoughts that you may have carrying in your mind, or your heart, your body, and to transform them to pure light. If we consider that each of us can live from our connection to Source, we know that God, whatever you call God, you don't have to use that word, whatever you call that life force, that loving energy, that is the calm in your center. If each of us live from that place just a little bit more, inspired by knowing that we are connected as opposed to the outer, which can cause anxiety for us, we can make a difference in the greater good. We can make a vibrational difference for ourselves. We can be health and wholeness. We can be love and light. In the book by Brene Brown, she said that stillness is not about focusing on nothingness. It is about creating the clearing within ourselves. And I believe that that prayer would assist us in doing so. It's about opening up and emotionally decluttering our minds and our hearts so that we can allow ourselves to feel and to think and to dream and to truly question so that we can expand our minds, our hearts, our homes, our communities, and recognize when the flower is reaching out to be touched by you. Just as Dr. Len had cleared his thoughts about his patients to heal them all in 4 years' time, to close down that psych ward, we too have the ability to clear our thoughts and change not only our lives, but the lives of all who cross our paths. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing can bring you peace but yourself." Enjoy the journey. Namaste.